In 1896, something happened that shocked the entire world. An African nation defeated a European empire at the height of colonial expansion. At a time when nearly every corner of Africa was being carved up by European powers, Ethiopia stood alone and refused to kneel. The Battle of Adwa was not supposed to happen. Italy believed the war would be easy, quick, embarrassingly one-sided. Instead, it became one of the greatest military humiliations in European colonial history. But Ethiopia's victory was not magic, not luck, and not mythology. It was strategy, preparation, leadership, unity, and a brutal misunderstanding of what Ethiopia truly was. To understand why Italy lost, you first need to understand the world at that time. The late 1800s were the age of empire. Britain controlled vast territories. France was expanding across Africa. Belgium was exploiting the Congo. And Italy, a newly unified European nation, desperately wanted colonies to prove itself powerful. Italy saw Africa as an opportunity to gain prestige, and Ethiopia looked vulnerable. But Italy made a fatal mistake from the beginning. They underestimated Ethiopia. At the center of Ethiopia stood Emperor Menelik II, a ruler who understood something many African leaders of the time did not. Europe was coming, and if Ethiopia wanted to survive, it needed to modernize before invasion arrived. So Menelik did something brilliant. While European powers competed against each other politically, he played them against one another. He purchased modern rifles, artillery, and ammunition from France, Russia, and even Italy itself. By the time war approached, Ethiopia possessed tens of thousands of modern firearms. This completely shattered the racist European assumption that African armies were technologically primitive. But weapons alone were not enough. Menelik also unified rival ethnic groups, regional leaders, and nobles under a common cause. That was extremely rare. Many African kingdoms fell because internal divisions made resistance impossible. But Ethiopia temporarily put those divisions aside. The invasion was no longer about politics. It became about survival, about sovereignty, about refusing to become another colony on a European map. And then Italy made its second catastrophic mistake, the Treaty of Wuchale. In 1889, Italy signed an agreement with Ethiopia, but the Italian version of the treaty secretly altered one crucial sentence. The Italian translation claimed Ethiopia was required to conduct foreign affairs through Italy, essentially making Ethiopia an Italian protectorate. The Amharic version did not say this. Menelik discovered the deception, and everything changed. Italy believed Ethiopia could be manipulated through diplomacy. Instead, it triggered a national crisis.
This treaty does not align with the Amharic text. They intend to subjugate us.
Menelik rejected the treaty publicly. War became inevitable. Now Italy faced a problem it did not expect. Ethiopia was preparing seriously. By 1896, Menelik assembled an enormous force, possibly over 100,000 soldiers. This was not a scattered tribal resistance. It was one of the largest African armies of the 19th century. And unlike many colonial conflicts, Ethiopian forces understood the terrain perfectly. Meanwhile, the Italians were operating deep inside hostile territory, with stretched supply lines and poor intelligence. Then came the Battle of Adwa, the 1st of March 1896. The Italian army advanced through mountainous terrain during the night, attempting a surprise attack. But confusion destroyed the plan almost immediately. Units became separated in the dark. Communication collapsed. Maps were inaccurate. Entire brigades drifted miles apart from each other. And Ethiopia noticed. Menelik's forces rapidly surrounded isolated Italian divisions one by one. What followed was chaos. Ethiopian troops attacked from multiple directions across the mountains. Italian forces found themselves outnumbered, exhausted, and trapped. And Ethiopia's modern rifles made the situation even worse. This was not a medieval army charging blindly. Many Ethiopian soldiers were heavily armed and battle-ready. The Italians expected superiority. Instead, they walked into disaster. Thousands of Italian troops were killed, others fled. Many were captured. It was one of the worst colonial defeats any European power suffered in Africa. The psychological impact was enormous. Europe had built an image of colonial invincibility. Adwa shattered it. For colonized people around the world, Ethiopia became a symbol. Proof that European empires could be resisted. Proof that Africa was not helpless. Even decades later, anti-colonial movements across the continent would look back at Adwa as inspiration. But Ethiopia's victory was not just military. It was intellectual. Menelik understood diplomacy, understood modernization, understood logistics, and most importantly, understood timing. He recognized the danger before it fully arrived. While many leaders underestimated European ambitions, Menelik prepared for them. Italy expected a divided kingdom with outdated weapons. Instead, it encountered a politically united state with modern arms and deep knowledge of its environment. And there was another factor Europe rarely admitted openly: arrogance. Colonial ideology convinced many Europeans that African resistance would collapse automatically. Italy believed victory was guaranteed before the war even began. That overconfidence infected military planning, intelligence, and decision-making. They did not believe Ethiopia was capable of defeating them. By the time reality arrived, it was too late. The defeat humiliated Italy internationally. But for Ethiopia, Adwa became something much larger than a battle. It became a symbol of independence itself. A reminder that preparation can defeat arrogance. That unity can overpower empires, and that history is never as inevitable as powerful nations claim it is. Because in 1896, on the mountains of Adwa, the colonial machine finally discovered something terrifying. One African nation refused to break, and won. If this story changed the way you see history, subscribe to Hidden Realities, where forgotten truths, psychological warfare, hidden power, and the darkest untold stories come to light. Because the stories they never taught you are usually the ones that matter most.